Hello ladies and gentlemen, Captain Shack here. We all know I love Space Sims and sandbox titles. Nothing screams sandbox more than the survival construction genre that's really blown up over the last few years. What started out being the domain of basically space engineers and Starmade has grown into a full genre. This does seem to be the genre that never actually releases a game. So without further ado, here are my top 10-ish upcoming Space Sim survival construction games of 2019. Let's kick things off with the obvious titles that only those new to the genre may be unfamiliar with. Space Engineers. Yeah, it's technically considered still in beta and falls under the title of Early Access over on Steam. We've been covering this title going on 5 years now. The title's gone through some major iterations, from being a little more than a game you could place down a few blocks in creative mode and fly around your creation in a largely empty world space, to the release of basic survival gameplay modes. Planets were added, the major multiplayer update just recently that allowed large groups of players to actually start playing together. Space Engineers is about to release the new survival update coming soon, adding in a few new blocks that let Space Engineers build from the ground up with nothing but a small escape pod, and making that early game a little bit more interesting. SC has one of the most active modding communities that truly gives this title long longevity life to it. Everything from new weapons, decorative blocks, planets, energy shields, PvE content, all that is there to spice up your world and builds. Will it ever be considered actually released? Well, sure, eventually, maybe. Next up on the list has to be Starmade, another ancient title in this niche genre. Also, it's still technically considered early access on Steam. Starmade has had a host of new improvements. New 3D assets keep being introduced with each major update. A large world map can be explored. Starmade is far more Minecraft than Space Engineers, but the mechanics are deep, with the ability to create custom weapons and defensive systems just by adding a mix of different blocks that you use. Multiplayer servers are available if you want to play with friends. Next up, Occupant Mars. This title screams The Martian turned video game in theme and style. You're tasked with building and upgrading your base on the red planet. Choose the best place to start your Martian city, near an underground water source, not too cold at night and not too warm in the day, and then start building your solar panels and start conducting mining operations. What's most interesting about the title is its focus on realism. Just look how repairing electronics work, using real-world tools to fix your equipment. Pretty cool. Can't have a space crafting sci-fi game list without Imperium Galactic Survival. This sci-fi focused adventure title is still in early access. Yeah, I don't think any of these space games ever actually release. Imperium is one of the more fleshed out games on the list, giving players full planets to explore with varying atmospheres. Large constructs are possible, and unlike, well, Space Engineers, Imperium does have some PvE elements introduced to it already in the base game. You can play multiplayer co-op and have your friends join you. The game is receiving constant updates throughout its development, improving with every iteration. It's not nearly as polished as your experience in SE if you're talking about physics, or the scale of the world as Avorion, but it's definitely got variety. Speaking of Avorion, on release, this was one of the bigger surprises for me. It's like a mix between X3 Albion Prelude, which is a classic space sim title, and Minecraft. You'll find an active living universe worth exploring. The game's got a unique starship and station building system that uses the amount of blocks that you add to calculate how much crew and shields, defenses that you have, power you can generate, and thrust you can muster, making each ship build a little different. Add in a massive galaxy size, stations to trade with, and fleets to build, and you've got a unique title that's only improved by the addition of the Steam Workshop. So if you're like me and are terrible at building starships, at least in this game, then you can download ones off the workshop. The community has made some stunning builds, allowing you to play with your favorite sci-fi as a theme if you want. Next up, Sky Wanderers. This is probably my second most anticipated voxel building title in the list. Sky Wanderers has a simple art style, and a single developer has managed to pack an amazing amount of gameplay behind it. Everything from building fully functional battleships fitted with full holographic navigation systems allowing you to see the entire galaxy that can be explored, a full working building system that lets you build just about anything you can think of, even the ability to make working mechs for navigating on terrain. No word yet on when this title is coming out, but the developer has been releasing update videos fairly consistently on his YouTube channel, a link down below. I'm gonna toss Star's End on this list as another small team indie space building title. Multiplayer crafting survival set hundreds of years in the future. It's first person and space combat. What sets this one apart from a lot of the others on here is a fully fleshed out story-based missions, 0 loading screens, and a focus on large-scale multiplayer with territory control and faction wars. And to be honest, the music reminds me of Firefly, which is reason enough to put it on this list.
Warning, low oxygen.
Dual Universe still remains the most interesting Space Sim Sandbox title on this list at the moment, not counting big projects like Star Citizen. I've done a number of full videos describing this project on its initial announcement, an MMO with the scale and territory control and politics of EVE Online, but with a crafting system that's so detailed you can build damn near anything you can imagine in it, from massive space stations, which we've seen in-engine working, planet-based cities, and giant warships. The devs have been running a number of private betas or alphas, and the title still remains under NDA, but as soon as that NDA drops, you can expect a much deeper dive into what's looking to be one of the most impressive space sandbox titles to drop in a long time. Next up is a title that recently actually released, X4 Foundations. It's not crafting in the traditional sense of customizing your ship's design, though it does have some interesting space station customization mechanics. It's a game all about building out your fleet, your empire, taking territory. X4 Foundations is already out, but the reason it's on this list, as the name suggests, it's the foundation for the later updates and expansions. The X universe has a variety of interesting races, each with their own technology and design styles. I will point out one of the weaknesses or weak elements of X4 at the moment for me is ship design. They're really lacking in the old personality of the titles predating this one. So hopefully in later expansions we see some of those ship styles come back from, say, X3 Albion Prelude and Terran Conflict. Interstellar Prime. It's an indie title focusing on bringing together the RTS and RPG genres with a strong story element. Quite the project for having first-person walking aboard ship with a purpose as well as space combat mixed in. Your goal is to eventually reach Alpha Centauri. More recently, the devs have added a survival element taking into account food, but also the psychological effects of being in deep space for long periods of time. You'll have to manage these needs and issues. It's going to be interesting to see how this title develops. There's a free demo currently available over on Steam if you'd like to try it out. There's a link in the description below. And a bonus item for the list before we go, Space Mechanics Simulator. It doesn't really fit with any list I could possibly think of, but nevertheless, the gameplay looks compelling. Soaring over Earth, repairing the space shuttle's engines or the International Space Station's grappling arm. The devs are planning on having 3 different planet bodies to explore, and you'll be able to drive around a rover on each and really kind of get into the NASA-style exploration, which is kind of cool. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one as well. Alright guys, if you have a favorite or an upcoming hyped for space sim construction title, let me know in the comments if I left it out. I know there's a few that are in early access now that I didn't mention here for a variety of reasons, whether it be the developers I don't have a lot of faith in, or the game hasn't seen much in the way of development over the last, say, 6 to 8 months. I probably left it out for a reason, but let me know in the comments if there's one that stands out to you. I'd love to put it on my list to keep an eye on. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel for more sci-fi gaming and modding goodness. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.